Hey, it's another segment of Table Time with Jim. It is a gloomy Tuesday outside today, as you can probably see out the window behind me. It's cold and rainy today, and it's a great day for soup. So I wanted to share with you what I did with the turkey that we had left over from our Thanksgiving, and I hope you guys didn't throw away the bones and the excess, meat if you had any left on there, because you can make an amazing bone broth with the turkey carcass, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that right now. I'm not going to chop everything up. I'm just going to kind of explain it. It is super simple, and even with the chopping and the prep work, it hardly takes any time. You can have it literally on the stove within about 5 minutes. I'm not even kidding you. So the only things that you're going to need are a nice big stock pot, about 3 to 4 carrots depending on the size. I use 3 pretty decent sized carrots. You're going to use 3 stalks of celery, 3.5 stalks of celery. These are pretty thick, so I use 3. Onion, I like a good amount of onion. Remember, this is just to make the actual bone broth first. Later on when you make the soup, after the bone broth is done cooking, you can use extra garlic, which I would recommend to make the actual soup. But for the cloves of garlic, it's good to smash them because you'll get a lot of the flavor out of them. So basically all I do, smash them and maybe chop them in half and just throw them in there. You don't even really have to take any of the skin off. You could just throw the skin in there because there's actually good nutrients in the skin as well. We typically don't eat that and get those nutrients. Onion, same exact thing. 1/4 of the onion, just dump that in there. And then the only other thing you're going to need is some Bragg's apple cider vinegar. Any really high quality, organic, raw, unpasteurized apple cider vinegar is great. So I like Bragg's, that's the brand that I use. And then you have your turkey carcass. So what we do is we pull all of the meat off of the bones first and set that aside. Then we put all of the bones and the rest of the carcass in the pot first. Then we load up all the veggies in there. You can always throw the veggies in there first while you're cutting it up if you want. But basically just throw everything into your pot first. Dump your apple cider vinegar in. I don't really measure. If I had to measure, I'd probably say 3 tablespoons. And so what you're going to do is you're going to put everything in your pot first, fill it up with water until everything is completely covered. When I made the turkey one, we had a lot stuffed in there because we had a 17.5 pound turkey for Thanksgiving. So I filled up a lot. So the water came to pretty much, right about here or so, which was fine. And let that sit. So after you fill it up, just fill it up enough so it covers. If you have even a really big pot, you have one of those really tall pots, or if you maybe just don't have a lot, you could just do this with chicken. Same thing goes with chicken. If you're only making a small chicken, or you only had a small turkey and you're not filling up the pot that much, that's fine. Only fill up the pot enough where you can cover all of the contents in the pot, and then that's it. And then all you're going to do is you're going to put the lid on and let it sit for half an hour because the apple cider vinegar is actually going to start to draw out some of the nutrients in the bones and the vegetables. So the apple cider vinegar, let that all soak together, not on the heat, just out in the open with the lid on. Then you boil it. So then you bring it up to a boil. Then just bring it to a low simmer like so. Okay, and then this is basically what it's going to look like when you start out. Then you're going to let it sit at that very low bubble, hardly simmering. You're going to let that sit overnight for at least 12 hours. So this one I did, like I said, at 9 o'clock, and then I finished it almost at 5 o'clock, so about 20 hours. So I let mine sit for 20 hours just because I didn't really make any sense to turn it off at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was here throughout the day, and I wasn't going to make the soup until that night, so which was just last night. And so basically I let it sit for as long as I could, and it just has amazing flavor. And as you can see, the color from this picture here, the color is just absolutely amazing. It has tremendous flavor. Notice I didn't put any herbs or salt or anything like that while you're actually making the bone broth. You do all of that afterwards. So, you know, you take the bone broth, you turn it into your soup. You know, you have more celery and more carrots and more onions and garlic, and then of course your meat. And I used actually I have some here. I used some organic quinoa pasta. And notice when if you do this right and you use high quality ingredients, you know, so our turkey that we bought was soy free, it was pasture raised. I mean, it just got to run around, and it was just one of the happiest things on the planet. Healthy diet, of course, things like that. All of that contribute to the nutrition and the quality of the broth. So notice what happens when it completely hardens. I'm not going to tilt it because it'll start to slide, but you notice it's like a jelly. That means that you have really, really good broth. You don't, this actually didn't have any kind of layer of fat, but sometimes you'll have basically a layer of fat that'll collect at the top and separate, and you never ever want to scrape any of that away, because that is all good, high quality fats, again, given that you have a high quality bird that you're using. But this stuff is just amazing. It's like jello, and then you have all the good ingredients there at the bottom. So that is the simplest way to make bone broth. I highly recommend that you make your own bone broth instead of spending money on pre-made stuff, because you see how easy that is. You can have everything ready in the pot, ready to go in 5 minutes, as long as you plan ahead. So if you want to make bone broth because you want to have soup tomorrow, make it today or start it today, and then as long as it sits for 12 hours. So right now it's 4:30, and so if you do it right now and you start it till tomorrow, you'll have more than enough time to let it sit and simmer and draw all those nutrients out of the bones, make incredible tasting bone broth. And then you can use all of that broth. I mean, I probably had maybe 3/4 of a pot filled with bone broth. And then what I did was I took most of it for the soup, and then I took a quart of it and I put that aside for a rainy day, and I threw that in the freezer. And I have a quart of the chicken bone broth that we made before, and I have a 5-pound bag of beef bones that I'm going to make some beef bone broth with as well. So it's great for rainy days, for soups. It has tons of nutrition, so it packs a really good punch as far as health-wise, and it's so much more cost-effective and more delicious than just buying it in the store, because it doesn't even compare. The store-bought stuff doesn't even compare to this. So I really encourage you to do that, especially now here where the colder weather is coming. It's just so nice and warming to have a nice hot bowl of soup. And yeah, so I hope that's inspired you to make something on this gloomy Tuesday. And so hopefully you have these ingredients at home. If not, run out and get them ASAP. Don't throw that chicken carcass or that turkey away if you haven't already. And I will see you next Tuesday. Have a good one.